Good morning, everybody. I'd like to add my thanks to Jonathan's and welcome you all here today. And particularly to thank Jonathan in advance for chairing today's conference. I know that we are in good hands. And I'm also particularly pleased to welcome so many of the people who've worked with us on this Retail 2020 project. Lots of them are going to be speaking and on panels today, so many of the members of the BRC that have been involved, but also lots of the stakeholders that we've been talking to as part of this project. Joseph Rowntree, Resolution, CIPD, Timewise, Women in Retail, Usdaw, as well as the supporters of today's conference, People First and Kronos. And we've got a bit of a highlight to keep you all here all day long because our favourite grocer is going to be talking to us at the end of the day. So Lord Price is making a debut back into retail from the world of politics and talking about his new book, which is called Fairness for All, which timing-wise is perfect because it really links beautifully to the agenda of engagement with people and how that can improve efficiency and productivity in businesses. So stick around for that. And having spent at least 20 years in working in retail, I'm sure I am like every other person in this room and actually really love working in the industry. And it's always in the news. And talking of the news, we've got ITN here today because another thing that's happening a bit later on is that they will be, we will be premiering a film about the changing face of retail that we've worked with ITN on. So thank you very much to the ITN team. I can't see you at the moment for that. Where's the, no, can't see them. So stay around for that too. And whether it's Brexit or business rates, retail is always in the public eye. And these two topics in particular are ones that are very close to our heart at the BRC. So ensuring that we have tariff-free trade is part of a fair deal for consumers on leaving the EU is a major part of our campaigning work, as is fundamental reform of the business rate system, so ensuring that we have a business tax system that's fit for purpose in the 21st century. And these are all part of our policy asks as part of the general election. But they're not what we're here to talk about today. And as important, and probably even more important than these two themes, is the world of employment. And we've seen, in fact, that play out already in the context of the election. Just yesterday, there was Theresa May's sort of 11 pledges around changing the world of work and various other things that have happened over the course of the last couple of weeks. So it's going to be a key theme in the context of the election too. And that's what we're here to talk about today. Our people. There are 3.2 million people in the UK who work directly in the industry. Many of them are young, female, part-time, and sometimes also lower paid. Now, everybody in the businesses in this room, I'm sure, has got an HR department, and of course HR departments focus on people. That's what they do, day in, day out. But it's really every part of a retail business that needs to be understanding and considering the significance of the seismic changes that we're actually seeing around us right at the moment. And that really brings me to why we launched the Retail 2020 project and why we thought that it was worth a whole day considering the strategy, the detail, to be able to share ideas and best practice with each other. And really the theme, I guess, is about change. It's about revolutionary change and the way that the world of work in the industry is changing. And in needing to deal with it, it's it is an imperative. It's not really a choice for businesses anymore. And we all know that kind of change happens all the time. But let's take a few minutes to really consider the sort of significance of the change that we're actually living through. So there are 4 forces of change that I want to touch on. Firstly, financial. So although we are seeing pressures build in the pipeline, in the supply chains, around inflation coming through, as of today, we are still in a deflationary shop price period. So we're in the 4th year of falling shop prices. And the costs of doing business are actually rising much more quickly than the market itself is growing. So business rates, for example, will cost the industry as a whole, so UK Retail PLC, about £2 billion more over the course of the next 3 years, the period to Retail 2020, than they do today. The implementation of the national living wage, about £1.5 to £3 billion. The apprenticeship levy, about £150 million a year. And taking all of those things together, just those things, effectively means that the industry itself needs to find what's equivalent to about 20% of its profitability in order just to be able to stand still. And that's, I guess, before you start taking into account the implications of the devaluation of sterling, which we've seen since the referendum vote last year. So it's no wonder that the profitability of UK Retail PLC is falling from about 5 to 8% net margins a few years ago to closer to 3 to 5 today. And so those financial pressures will bring about change. The second force of change is around people. The incidence of low pay has risen across the economy, and the incidence of low pay in retail has also grown from about 1/3 of the people who work in retail about 20 years ago to closer to half today. And we are seeing that question of fair and decent work actually play out in the context of the election, as I mentioned earlier. In a speech last week, a gentleman called Matthew Taylor, who used to work for Tony Blair, is now advising Theresa May, raised some serious questions, not just about the number of jobs, but about the quality of the work that is undertaken. And he was basically saying it's not a case of one or the other. And he was quoting a poll that had been undertaken, which basically said that 1 in 10 people believe that, only 1 in 10 people believe that all work is fair and decent. And that nearly 75% of people said that more needed to be done to improve the quality of work. So the spotlight being on pay, on people, and on the quality of work will also drive change. The third driver is around technology, one that will be familiar to anybody in this room that works in a retail business. We all know, as being shoppers ourselves, that the way that we all shop is changing. Around 15% of sales today are made online, and those are continuing to grow at about 10% a year. And what the internet has done is enabled more people to have more information at their fingertips than ever before. And that is making the industry even more competitive than it's ever been before. And that has consequences too in terms of the types of work that people undertake. So today, there are 100,000 people who work in retail who are doing jobs that didn't even exist just 5 years ago. So everything from a social media manager to a digital marketeer. And at the same time as those new and different jobs are being created, other jobs are actually needing to change. As Jonathan mentioned, jobs in retail are at a higher risk of automation than in lots of other industries. Think about robots and drones and artificial intelligence. And it's not just technology replacing jobs or having completely different jobs, but it's people doing jobs themselves that actually are different to what they were doing before. Perhaps a more analytical job, a more customer-focused job. And we're going to see this change continue to play out as the cost of technology continues to fall, while the cost of labour continues to rise. And that investment in technology, in digital, has doubled in the industry over the course of the last 20 years. And so that ongoing investment and the technology revolution that we are all living through will also drive change. Which brings me to the fourth force. And I would really love a drink of water, because I'm going to be up here for ages. Is it? There's a magic glass of water that nobody else is going to have. Now I've got it. Right, the fourth force of change that I wanted to touch on is the social one. So while the investment in digital is rising, the investment in physical space is actually falling. So 20 years ago, 90% of all retail investment used to go into physical space. Now it's closer to 2/3. There are 40,000 fewer shops today than there were. 10% of shops all around the country are actually vacant, empty. And that masks a real big variation in different parts of the country. So in some areas, it's 20, 25, even 30% of shops that are vacant. And it's that impact that's being felt in the areas that are economically weaker and those that are perhaps more vulnerable. And it's impacting those that are more vulnerable in society. And so that social impact will also drive change. And so it was against this backdrop of those forces of change that the Retail 2020 project was born. We wanted that change to be a positive change. So what we did is we convened a group of members of the BRC, senior level, those working in the industry, and this group was chaired initially by Sir Charlie Mayfield, who is the chairman of John Lewis Partnership and was the chair of the BRC at the time, and involved many of the people who actually are here today. And so while I'm up here, I just want to say thank you all very much for your help with that. But what the group did is we commissioned some research that was undertaken by Tooley Street to really understand the people who work in the industry and what their motivations and their perceptions were. And so we published 3 thought-leading reports to sort of investigate in more detail the whole topic. The first was called Fewer But Better Jobs. And we were pretty upfront and clear. And we said that those forces of change were so significant that in the future, so over the course of the next 10 years, there would likely be fewer jobs in the industry. And we said that that could be up to 900,000 fewer. We also said, though, that we believed that at the same time, the jobs could change for the better. And so then we looked at how employment works right now. And our second report, which was called What Our People Think, really provided some insight into those perceptions and is going to be really important for the journey ahead. And so what we know is that actually it's the locality and the flexibility that are the 2 most important reasons that people cite for working in the industry. Interestingly, pay only comes 6th. We also know that around 70%, just under 69%, feel motivated to give their best at work. That's a really great place to start. How can we get them to give more? And I bet one of the answers to this is going to be around how we can build on that flexibility, which is the main reason that people work in the industry. And we're going to be talking a bit more about that later on. But we were also concerned to see that there are 57% of people who work in the industry believe that working in retail has a poor image. Now, this is a future nightmare for retailers up and down the country, because if we need to recruit people with different skills, both now and in the future, and invest in the opportunities that we have to offer, and that we're going to need more data scientists or programmers or designers or whatever title it is that we haven't even thought of yet. How are we going to convince them that this is a great career if the perceptions are out there like that, and we need to draw them in and persuade them that working in retail is a better prospect than banking or anywhere else. We also found that only around half of people are proud to work in the industry. Why do they feel this way? The stories that you'll hear today and at all of our events will really highlight, and you'll all know this, that working in retail is an amazing industry. But we have to get to the bottom of why we're not inspiring more of our people. And we have to change it. And perhaps that's part of where the answer might lie. So 74% of people who work in the industry believe that there are opportunities that they can themselves see for things to be done better. But only 58% believe that their ideas are taken seriously. So that's 1.5 million people with ideas and passion about what they do. And that's an extraordinary resource that we need to tap into. Let's use that energy and experience and actually find a way to reach the other 1.5 million. And in the third stage of our Retail 2020 work, which are the things that we're working on with the team, the members of the BRC at the moment, we were looking at the things that would need to be considered and addressed by companies in order to be able to build on some of those challenges that we identified. How to understand how training actually supports people in their ability to progress within the organisation. How to personalise the offer that people are getting to different life stages that they're at and different things that they're looking for from their job. And how to actually enable people to progress in different ways across different groups. And perhaps most importantly, how you engage people more in improving productivity within the business. And all of that adds up to our Retail 2020 vision. And our vision is this. Our vision is that the working in retail is a rich and rewarding career for everybody, regardless of background or life circumstances. And that retail will have more highly skilled roles with greater variety and opportunity. And that the industry has even more high caliber leaders, and that the industry is widely respected for its training and general management. And that everybody who wants them has opportunities to progress, both from a responsibility point of view, but also from a pay point of view. And this was a vision that 40 companies across the industry, so all members of the BRC, have actually signed up to. Businesses that are working with us and have committed to work more collaboratively with each other in order to be able to build the momentum towards that vision of better jobs. And having set that vision, we decided we needed to measure how we were getting on. And so we produced a very simple dashboard in order to be able to assess that, which was launched earlier in the year. And so we're tracking how the industry's productivity is doing compared to the rest of the economy. How the gap between pay within retail is compared to the rest of the economy. And most importantly, a level of engagement, which is a composite score looking at how engaged people are who work in the industry. And the reasons for having a dashboard are really clear, because if we're setting ourselves a standard and a clear goal, then we have to be accountable for what we're actually committing to. And so what's next? So we'll be continuing to convene conversations like we're having today, using evidence and the experience of those that work in the industry to actually build and win the argument for change. And every one of you coming here today is a part of building that momentum towards positive change. So I'm really, really looking forward to today. I hope that you enjoy the conference and that we will be continuing to work with the members of the BRC on this project as we go forward. So for anybody who would like to get involved in that and isn't already, then please come and have a chat to me or a member of the BRC team. But I just hope that you enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you very much.